was rejected at $3,000 for the people with their Cs and $500 for those carrying their bachelor's or just master's within the SLP program. So I went back, sat with Mr. Ward, CFO, crunched some numbers, looked at some things, and while, as I said last time, we were at a place where we did not see much flexibility based on what we had and the multifaceted issue of our caseloads, and also our lack of a stipend in comparison with other districts. I'm coming forward with an altered MOU that the amount remains at $3,000 for the Cs, and the lower amount of $500 is presented at $750. You guys pass that around. Again, I didn't print a copy for everyone, but it's verbatim, the same as the last time. There were other discussions that came about of creating a separate salary schedule based on the cost of that in comparison what other districts do, being competitive, and to our surrounding areas, and also the statutory ramifications that would center around that, which would make it difficult. This is where we've come in on the amount that we're willing to put forward at this time for SLP. So this is where we're at.
What statutory?
Well, I mean, you're essentially, these are instructional people that are on pay for performance. You run into the same issues of if you're providing increases to base salaries, you can only do that through student performance and the evaluation results of their student performance, as we all know. So there will be some statutory difficulties in doing that. It's not
We'd be looking at
illegal at all.
stipends, wouldn't we?
What's that?
Wouldn't we be looking at stipends?
Well, a supplement or stipend, however you want to call it, that's not a salary schedule. Creating a new salary schedule is.
No, I'm talking about for these.
These are supplements that would be annual supplements, and remember, they go in this MOU, the way it's written, it would go into contract. What we're proposing, that when we ratify, we can roll this into the contract, so it's part of the supplement within the compensation section of the contract. So it wouldn't just be a one-time deal, and we are willing to retro this back this year.
That was the question I was going to ask. Is the retro back to the beginning of the year?
Yes, July 1st, 2018, and then depending on when people came on board, there'll be some proration there. Yes, sir.
I've got a question, a clarification on that. In the current contract, there is an MOU under extra stipend pay that does include speech and language under the $750 critical shortage bonus. Does that stay in place, or does that then rescind that piece if this is now added to 2018-2019?
This is included, and that's why when I was going down the list of the things that they receive, the advanced degree supplements, and the additional advanced degree supplement, then you put in the critical shortage, and then they happen to be at a Title I school or service to Title I. There's also additional funding that comes in there, so this would go along independently of that.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah. So the fact that we include ESC in that critical shortage area, it would remain under that critical shortage. I don't see ESC coming off that critical shortage list anytime soon.
I don't think so.
No.
Or math, or English, or some of the others. Any other questions before I call a caucus?
I do have a question. When you're talking about the 3,000 with Cs, I'm going to assume you're only talking about those contracted through Lake County and not contracted with private contractors?
That is correct.
So about how many are you talking?
As far as the ones with Cs that are currently directly employed with us at this time, you're looking at 17 currently, I believe is where, when I went through the system, that was from last year rolling into this year. I believe it's between 17 and 21. So that's about the range that we're in.
Sure.
I was just trying to figure out a total amount that the district is putting aside for this.
And guys, I'm not being rude whatsoever, but this is way different than what we've done from a bargaining process. I understand that. Then we need to have some discussion because, I mean, usually if we've got visitors, they're not at the table, there's a little more formal on what
They are on my
questions.
bargaining team.
They're on your bargaining team?
Yes. They're not visitors, they're on my bargaining team.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, that never was made clear to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have made that clear.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's about the number that we're looking at.
Okay. Charlene, yeah.
No, we can talk about it.
Okay, so do a caucus, please. Very good.
We got a board?
Are we moving or are they?
We should, there's only a few months.
Yeah, we can go. We can go in there. No, we can.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Chad,
I'm going to let Charlene respond. And we're glad you looked at the other for the folks with without their Cs. And I'm going to let Charlene talk from this point.
I am greatly appreciative that the board is seeing the extra time and effort that they are putting into those degrees, and the responsibility that goes with them. I personally would like to see the 750 up a little higher, but I understand some restraints. My only other concern is I would like to see, currently they are working on the basic max capture program. And Robin Neal had negotiated 5 of those schedulers into that for free. So we have 5 people who have used that for the last several months and have said that it cuts their time in half, pulling it. For instance, Carolyn Hunter has 120 students on her caseload. So she's going in and pulling out those students and writing down, capturing that moment of therapy. And that has to be done within a 48-hour time period. There is no
Or you don't get
leeway.
reimbursed for it.
Correct, on that. So she's constant every time going down through that list. Next year, however, you can't, students don't come off of the max capture list. So next year, there will be all those, even the 5th grade students who leave her and go on to the school, and the students coming in, those will all be there. So those lists are going to become increasingly longer and more difficult for them, which is going to be more time consuming. And I would like to ask the board to also approve max capture, the scheduling software for those therapists who have a caseload of 80 or above. 70 is an allocation, and that they're working hard for doing that. But
And that's our basic allocation through the allocation committee.
I know when we discussed it before, I know you guys said, man, some of this is making all the difference in the world. And I think you said perhaps you might not even,
I don't need it.
you wouldn't need it. So there's probably some that are peppered throughout that might not need it.
That's correct.
As far as the, so I guess as far as the contracted individuals, I mean, that doesn't, are they operating on the same?
Yes, we expect the same capturing moments from them as we do from our direct hire.
Well, and that's when I'm curious
But the scheduler, we're only talking for our direct hires, right?
No.
No?
No, anyway.
No, you would probably need it for any of them that
Okay.
it just would make sense.
All right.
And that's one thing that we pointed out, we're looking for other ways to make their lives easier. What I would like to do is, my commitment up front is yes, we need to do something in that area, but without looking at the contract and the cost per site license and maybe seeing if we can leverage those folks a little bit to get some better deals on larger amounts, that'd be something we probably need to go back and push on.
What they are quoting right now is $239.88 for each individual license. But they also sell it as a pack of 5 for $1,199.40, and you have to buy it in a pack of 5. However, what they told Robin was that you only pay for what you use. So if we said we wanted 40 programs for next year, and it came in that we only needed 22,
Okay.
then that's what we would do.
They were worried about it.
Don't let me put words in your mouth, but may I suggest, with a commitment, a smaller subgroup of this group? Who was the person that did the initial contact?
Robin Neild is the person who works with Max Capture.
Okay. And we would have IT, right? Somebody in Crete, I would assume? I don't know.
Probably not. It'd probably be, and others are there. Do you know if the funding source was it just general fund dollars right now? That it wasn't. I guess my question.
We are not paying for the 5 that we have currently.
Okay.
They're saying they threw a sample at it to say potential purchase.
Okay. Well, and just like anything, I mean, we could probably, the right person could go back at them and work those numbers a little bit on there too.
Yeah.
So if we had to guess how many might not use it, do we have a guess of how many that might not need it? I know you don't have the caseload memorized. I remember.
She does.
I would say probably around 7 or 8 would not need it.
Okay, that's fine.
If we next year are looking at similar to what we are this year.
Okay.
Mr. Farnsworth, I hate to interrupt. I've been doing this a little while, and I could never bargain anything that's been outside of the contract and compensation in the contract over 10 years. I'm not against this. I think it's a great thing that we need to do. We probably need to sit with Tara Hart and look at IDA funding to be able to purchase that, but I don't think that's appropriate in this form.
Well, it's gonna come back towards and part of that we've had through our discussions that have built to the bargaining table, and I get the conversation the MOU is this is probably less than a bargain. That's why I'm offering commitment and not a signature at the moment, because it's something that we looked at the different things. There's the daily struggles they face. There's lack of the stipend. And then there's the caseloads, and they all intertwine. And part of the other piece was looking at, I'd even talked to them at one time or another if there was an availability of a Chromebook for them, would that help also? That way I get it, they have somewhere, a station in the schools they can go to, but man, if it's a nice day or we're there, wherever, we all know that the convenience factor kicks in there too. So those are options I want to look at. I want to get with it's probably more of a finance department. I don't think this is something that would be covered out of IDEA anyway. I doubt it. So
It's not for ESUs.
yeah,
It's for us to get money.
yeah. So
It's to generate Medicaid money, yeah.
Right.
So and then there's the other areas out of SLP that might. I don't know if this can apply over into other areas where we're going to be billing also. So I need to talk to Robin in that too, because I know transportation does some billing, the other therapies do some billing. There's some other areas there too. So.
Right, they do. I don't. most of the other areas, like psychologists and social workers, don't have caseloads equal to this. So if we were looking at 80, that might, but I don't know about transportation.
Okay. Well, what I can commit to is to go back, talk with Robin, and in turn CFO, Mr. Ward, and see what we can do in that area. I would definitely say we could work some way or another to provide some more licenses. I need to talk to the superintendent and see what we can do. But it is a goal to make you guys' caseloads more manageable. So I don't see that being an issue.
Thank you. I know one of the points that they brought up when we were just talking is the fact that every entry that they do is time-stamped. We can show you how much how much time they're putting in after a school day. So that would be greatly appreciated. It would make it easier for them.
I will definitely work on that, and we'll and that will circle back away from the bargaining table and come back through Terry, yourself, CFO, Robin. Let's see how we can work out doing some things there.
Okay, just make sure I'm doing it.
Okay. I have a feeling you will be.
One more or the other.
Yeah.
So that's the only additional piece that looking at this, the scheduler for the folks with large caseloads.
At this time, I've got handled that as a separate piece.
I understand.
If you guys are ready to move forward on the MOU, that's great. And all I can offer is a commitment at this time verbally to work those issues
Let's see
out.
what you find out on that. And then we can go ahead and sign and move on.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So you know where we're at.
Gotcha.
Good.
Now that excites me too, because I was hoping there could be some other issues besides just compensation that could help improve those areas. So. The next part I had was health insurance, and guys, I just want to give you some heads up. We've got an event at 5 o'clock that some folks are going to have to get to. I can be a few minutes late to it, but just giving you guys a heads up on that. But the health insurance, we had a recommendation coming out of the committee meeting, and we bring it to the table after the recommendation comes, and then the way it's been handled in the past, when there were increases, you got obviously 2 members here that are on the insurance committee, so you guys feel free to. I don't think any of us are insurance gurus, but we do know enough to be probably dangerous. But there's, just so you guys know from what I can share out of the gate, there were plan redesign needed to occur. Just some history. I don't know how much of this is repeated, but it's nice to refresh everyone. Some history is that when you're self-funded, by law, you're required to carry a 60-day fund balance. And currently, Lake County has been in the practice last few years of carrying a 0 fund balance.
Well, can I add a little cognizance to that?
Sure.
And that's because we had a large enough reserve that the state allowed that as the fund balance.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't a separate account, we had a large enough reserve, but over time before BC maybe, that reserve was spent down.
Correct.
So now it's the necessity is to create a fund balance because we have no reserve to cover it.
Correct. He's exactly right in that it used to be able to write a letter that would suffice, and we don't have the ability to cover a catastrophic year 60 days out. We'd be way too close to financial peril, and the state would be up our nose because we would dip below 3%. So what we began doing in September of this year was we increased the board's contribution on the back end from $620 per to $787. The CFO is, Mr. Ward is recommending continuing that. And if we continue that, we will build up by August of 2020. You see this in the highlighted portion on the bottom there. You would wind up with a 4.9 fund balance. That doesn't quite cover our 60 days, but that's a good start in the right direction. And as you'll see, where, you know, insurance is going either one direction or another, either increasing premiums or lessening the richness of the plan. And as you'll see on the chart I handed out, the red is where the plan richness went in the negative direction, and I don't know if we can see the green on here, but there is green. It's hard to tell how it's copied out. There's a couple areas, it looks like bold, and it's under the select PPO plan on the out of network. But you see the 0% across are the increase in premiums for our group members, which includes a little bit of everybody. The two other plans that were brought forward by Gallagher, one of them was leaving all things the same. That's not acting on we took our pharmaceuticals out to bid also, the management, to pull them out of Florida Blue. So what that entailed was leaving the pharmaceuticals with Blue, and there were two other strong bids. The strongest was a company called Express Scripts, and by going with Express Scripts, over 3 years we were projected to save a little over $7 million. And that $7 million and going to Express Scripts is included in the result of what you see here. So that's where a lot of that 4.9 builds from, and the ability of not having to increase premiums on the members. So you've got that kind of side piece. I can tell you, Blue came back on the pharmaceuticals and basically stuck their nose up for the most part. I don't know how you guys felt about it. They didn't really care to keep the business, and Express Scripts really expressed a good effort to get things in the right direction. And I checked a little bit behind on them and some other places, and people have had good experience on them. So all that being said, we went back and looked for some areas within the plans that were killing us as far as where some really high claims and management of healthcare was not occurring. And you'll see on the left side, the Florida Blue is our current, and the right side, the alternative plan design. So what you see in red, if you want to see what it changed from, you can just scan over to the first 4 columns there, and that shows what it moved to. Keep in mind that we've still got 2 plans that are $0 for our individual employees. When you look at what was offered by leaving things the same, it was those family plans that really got hit hard. If you were an employee and children, depending on what plan you were, it could be anywhere from $100 to $200 increase in per pay period. And then when you get the employee and family, holy cow, there were $300 per pay period increases. I mean, it was fairly absurd. So this is where we landed through a combination of the plan redesign and taking out the pharmaceutical. This is what we've been able to do, and this was your recommendation coming from your insurance committee. And we didn't feel like it was reasonable at this time to come forward and have our members absorb any of that increase from the 620 to the 787 right now. We felt like that effort needed to be made by the district to try and build that fund balance. So, and you know, I had the opportunity over spring break to converse a little bit about what's going on in some other districts, and I can tell you, we're by no means in the worst shape possible when it comes to insurance. There's some fully insured folks that are facing some real challenges, and there's also some self-insured ones that have got a long road to go also. So that made me feel a little bit better that, you know, we're not too bad off. And then when you take into consideration, I mean, the clinics are, you know, we're going to continue to press on care here. As these guys can attest to that are on the insurance committee, they're probably feeling a little more pressure than they ever have. So we're going to challenge them to some of these long-standing issues that have been reoccurring in our insurance committee meetings, that we hear from them with some solutions. And because they are not the only game in town. And I also had a chance to look into that a little bit over the break. But I will tell you, some folks that have dealt with them, there have been some real growing pains on people that have moved away and gone to different groups. So, you know, insurance is wonderful, isn't it? And then we hear today that, you know, the Affordable Health Care Act could be illegal tomorrow morning, so who knows. But this is where we're at as far as we go. As we head towards open enrollment, our goal has been to get some of these things done sooner. I think we're moving towards accomplishing that goal so people aren't flying into open enrollment blind.
I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Farnsworth, if there was any problem in any specific area that they said that we could improve upon. I mean, where is it costing us for the insurance to continue to go up? Where are we getting?
Claims drop increases, and it's just our claims are, you know, our claims are trending high. As far as, you probably need Josh to speak to the specific areas a little more in depth. I know that inpatient hospital, outpatient surgical was an area that you really just don't see that. I mean, really it was pulling our plans back in line, probably what's more, now has become the norm across the industry, mainly because it's going to be affordable. That's why it's pulling that direction. And you guys can, if you guys can recollect some more on the specific areas, feel free.
Okay, in the contract, it talks about a base plan, I think it's $33.59 at Florida Blue. Which one of these is comparable to the base plan that's in the contract now and would be comparable as we move forward?
Well, that mid PPO, that is the base plan currently, we had discussed the base PPO staying as the base plan. So that same $750 deductible plan.
But that $750 deductible plan it's killer for teachers. $750. There's got to be a way we can get that down a little.
You would be hard pressed to find a $750 deductible on Earth right now.
Really?
You're lucky to have that. The fact there's a $500 there, and you wind up paying for that. If people do the math, you wind up paying for the $500 deductible. That's not a good deal, and you aren't going to find $750.
I just thought I'd ask.
No, I hate it. And to be honest with you, $1,000 deductible barely exists. It's that $1,500 number is just about your starting point anywhere you go these days. And if you find somebody that's got one that's considered low, it may be $1,250. So yeah, that's
I don't know if anyone has any questions. So we're looking at the base PPO plan as being the base plan in the contract?
yes, sir. And if you look at that, one thing I do recall, being that was the base plan, I remember Josh saying the urgent care, because sometimes that's the only access somebody might have on the weekend if they can't get the clinic on the Saturday it's open or wherever the case may be. I think he said the industry standard around that is around $60 for an urgent care. So he tried to keep that tamp down a little bit. He didn't try and drive that up. He knows it's an option that needs to be available. And I can say I finally feel like we've got someone on our side with Gallagher and Josh as far as our rep. I've been poorly represented, as I mentioned in the past. I've been averagely represented, and so I can tell the difference, and they're doing their due diligence. Our business is more important to them than the company, so.
So what would happen if we stayed with our mid-PPO plan and made no changes?
That would be something, those are just, those are plan projections that Josh would have to run. I mean, according to what he put forward, that would generate some type of increase. And usually you don't want all the increase to be shouldered on one plan.
I think that's the plan probably most employees have.
Well, you've got actually,
Although there's some who have the ultra high deductibles, the 3,000 and 6,000.
well, you've got your enrollment numbers, actually your highest numbers are in that first plan.
500 deductible?
Yeah.
Yep, you've got 1,711 just on the employee only. And I think that you think, that your employee only, a lot of them would take a $0, but $38 a month is not real bad, and 19 or 20 bucks a month isn't real bad when they look at the richness of the plan and the lower max out of pockets.
So that's gonna be a month and not per paycheck?
That's a per pay period amount that you've got there. Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed.
Thank you. Okay,
So you will see some migration from one plan to another, just like you would any year. I don't think these changes, just from a novice perspective, I don't see any mass exodus from one plan to another, really. I think if people, get a little bit wise they'll probably move off that 500 plan. And we had the status of where, to be honest with you, where that high deductible plan was. If we would have had a massive shift to that, which the planners of the world, man, it could have sunk us on a really high claim year. It could have been rough. So that's why you see a lot of changes to that plan.
So we don't have projections if we just stay with the same plan with no changes?
Yeah, the projections of staying with the same plan, you're basically looking at an annual cost difference of 48% of another $3.2 million that had the difference in cost. And that was where, your top family plan went up $300. Your employee only on the 500 deductible plan went up $20 a pay period, and it just kind of spreads across there. That was that second option that he presented to us at the insurance committee meeting. So your total annual cost, which is 6.8 million, grows to 10 million, 10.1. Because the goal a little bit outside insurance committee, and the 0% increase on this, you know, at first I was like, because I don't like the roller coaster game of 0-17, 0-15, you know, where you all of a sudden you're playing games. You know, theoretically, you have to, your group, in order to stay healthy and keep up with the trends, you've got to get to a digestible single-digit increase annually in order to keep up with the times. But because of plan design not happening in a while here, there was room to make some adjustments there, and with us pulling pharmacy out, it created kind of an anomalous circumstance that, you know, because the last thing I wanted is to measure this out there is, oh, because we went out to pharmacy, that's, you know, now we can expect these savings for years to come. You know, it's kind of like when we went to clinics. That's going to save you. When you go self-funded, boom, you're going to save a large chunk. When you go to clinics, boom, you're going to recognize a little bit of savings, but then that's going to equalize eventually, because then it's just a preventative measure to keep folks out of, you know, the catastrophic claims. And then now, same thing, taking pharmacy out.
May I clarify? Tony was asking per pay period, but they're not taken out during the summer, correct? So it's basically on 20 pay periods.
Yes, correct.
And when are they looking or would like to do open enrollment?
We've got, what's the date? In order to get to open enrollment, we would need to try and get it to the board ASAP. And I'm trying to remember the date she had for open enrollment. Let me double check.
It's in May.
Yeah, I want to say at the beginning of May, so that way we can get people in as soon as possible. And open
I
enrollment.
guess the question I'm asking is, when's the drop dead date of approving this?
Well, as far as board approval goes, it needs to happen ASAP. You know, and that's where I knew it would be a little bit weird, because it's not a matter of with there not being an increase, and I get it, the increases or the change in benefit has to be negotiated, but it's, you know, that gets pretty airy when you get into negotiating the change in benefit. And I think that's why you guys are part of that insurance committee, is so we can voice those concerns at that committee.
So if we move from Florida Blue to Gallagher Company, we're going to have to go in and apply with Gallagher?
No, ma'am. Gallagher is our agent of record,
Okay,
and Florida Blue is our carrier.
okay,
And a lot of times you'll hear, we need to take Florida Blue out. Those are fully insured people.
okay.
We're self-insured. Basically, we're paying for Blue's network.
Okay.
And they know that's where their money's at. They've created a stronghold that slightly weakens year by year now that people are figuring all that out, but they are still our carrier.
Okay.
We just pulled the pharmaceutical side out from them. You know, Brown & Brown was our old Gallagher. Gallagher's our new person that
Yeah,
represents
it's not
us
ground to ground.
much better.
Yeah,
So-
much better.
Move on.
And I will say that, like, with you asking, the Blue Cross had insurance and then the pharmacy, which what Chad was talking about is there's, Blue Cross Blue Shield is no longer going to be taking care of the pharmacy side. It would be this Express Scripts. So, which unfortunately you would have two cards.
But
You
yeah,
would have
that's,
Blue Cross and you would have an Express Script, you know, for your prescription cards.
Unless you get your drugs
If
from,
you get drugs like at Walgreens or
Right,
Walmart
okay.
and whatever.
unless you get your drugs from the health center.
The health centers, the care here places are gonna be, nothing would change from them.
Huh? So really, it's the inpatient and surgical where the biggest increases are.
Those were the probably more significant adjustments there.
I'm just thinking of my experience the last couple of years, so. You laugh.
It's nice to be a survivor.
Okay. Any other questions before we do a caucus? Any, Tracy?
No.
Okay. Mike?
It's a big record.
All right. You want to go in the comfortable chairs or? you wanna stay
We're
out
good,
here?
we'll stay here. That worked last time.
Go. All right. Really, as we look at that, we don't feel that we have a lot of choice. And just to put it on the record, I really hate that our current employees, and I've said it before, are paying for the sins of the past and for not having our health trust fund maintained over the years. And now we have to recreate something that we should have had all from the beginning. So, with that said.
Well, I will say, in response to that, you know, yes, there was a zero balance held there, lawfully because the reserves were there to cover it in general.
Let's see again,
Those
it goes back to
dollars.
sins of the past.
All right, but if sins are the past or general funds going elsewhere, those general funds, a lot of those go to pay increases that go directly to paychecks rather than insurance benefits. So, no, that's accurate. No, because they, you know, the things that are being presented as there haven't been pay increases in the past is absolutely false. Because there have been pay increases. And
Well, we've never said
some of
there
that
wasn't.
attributes. Well, that's what you said Monday.
No, I
There hasn't
said
been.
small increases.
Okay, well.
I never
Just-
said no.
I get it, but I'm just saying
We had
that
no
money
increase
can
in
go, general
17,
fund
18.
money can go one direction, you know,
We
or
had
another.
no
or several
increases
others.
in 17, 18.
In 17, 18, correct.
And that was, the agreement was a year to fix things so we can get back on track.
Well, it depends on what the definition of back on track is. Back on track is having a sustainable school system, so,
I believe this is foreshadowing.
yeah, I got you.
So yes. All right, so we've come to an agreement on that.
Okay,
We've come to a 75% agreement on the SLP MOU.
okay.
We have, some of our folks are going to a statewide bargaining conference this weekend. So we'll come back rejuvenated and ready to go. Is there any other business that we need to address right now? David is providing the wine for our next meeting.
Which David? This was that. Just because I was late, is that it?
Last guy.
Last guy here, man.
That means y'all drinking what I'm drinking.
Then we'll drink what you're.
I'll get the cheese.
All right, is there any other business we need for today? Do we need to set a date?
Yeah, I would like, if we could hold off on setting something today, because I need to go back and run that against our assessment schedules and some different things also, and we can work out a day. We don't have a full room today anyhow, so if you guys we can work together to communicate maybe a future day.
Okay.
Because you guys, just like I said, you're on the conference, meet with folks, come back with fresh ideas. I've got a couple meetings set up in the background to come back with some fresh ideas, but I don't have a date on those yet, but we're trying to get them together as soon as possible. So if we can hold off with the idea, and then, of course, we got legislative session that, you know, we'll be waiting for the windfall come from there, I'm sure.
Only if they go with the Senate plan.
There you go.
If they go with the Senate plan, we're okay.
Nobody reads what
Yeah,
Baxter
it's
slipped in.
that. So
Yeah.
it's, so we'll see. I know that's a factor also, but that doesn't mean we don't have things to talk about, obviously.
Right.
So, and if we can plan for a date, in the maybe over next week, we can work to set a date. Does that seem feasible to you guys? Okay.
And just as a sidebar, I'd like to welcome Tom and Sue to, this is something new that FBA is doing. We are one of the flagship programs that are looking at bringing community members in on the bargaining team. So this is kind of a new thing.
Okay.
So we're kind of on the cutting edge here. So we welcome them on our team and glad they're with us.
Thank you, guys.
Chad, do you happen to know when the projected transfer period is anticipated?
Instructional transfer,
Yes.
April 15 through 19.
Got that memorized. How about you? Just let me close the laptop.
15 through 19. And the Barbara is 415.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you guys.